Hey everybody, welcome to another drive-through Let's Play and review. This is going to be about Warhammer Underworld's Shadespire. This is a brand new release coming out here in the next couple of weeks from Games Workshop. It's set in their fantasy Age of Sigmar universe, and if I had to kind of compare this to other games, it would be a little bit difficult, but probably quickly I would say it's like X-Wing, a little bit of Magic the Gathering, and then a little bit of Warhammer, Age of Sigmar type of stuff. So what players are going to be doing in this game is they're each going to bring a small warband of heroes and characters to a battlefield and then fight over kind of these shards that are in this blasted city of Shadespire. It's like, they call it kind of like the mirror dimension type of thing, where they have these special mirrors that can do all these crazy things. So in the box you'll get 8 miniatures, 3 Stormcast Eternals, kind of like your heroes depending on your point of view, and then 5 Blood Reavers from the Khorne Blood God. So it's 5 on 3, but they're very asymmetrically kind of balanced in terms of, you know, what the different characters and stuff can do. Now there's going to be other expansions, I believe. Quickly following up on this right away is going to be Iron Jaws, which are like big old orcs, and then a horde of undead, which is only 7 models, but quite a bit for this style game. Those will be coming out soon. So you have these decks of cards as well, 2 decks actually, that you can customize. There's a starter decks, which is what I'm going to be showing you in the playthrough, and then there's a good chunk of extra cards that come with this box, and the future expansions will also have expansion cards that you can add to your decks, similar to how X-Wing works. So you can customize these different decks, and that will kind of dictate your play style probably in terms of how you get objectives and who you kind of target on the battlefield and all that kind of stuff. So let's jump into the game. It plays very, very quickly, and they've said it's actually designed to be like a best 2 out of 3 style game. So it's really designed to be have organized play, and I think there's going to be some organized play support. I don't know any specifics of that, but I think it's designed for that. You play it on a Friday night tournament, that kind of thing. 2 out of 3, and there'll be some kind of support down the road. But let's jump in and take a look at how the mechanics and all that stuff works. Okay, here you can see I've got all the components laid out here for a 2-player game. It does support up to 4 players if you get some of the extra expansions. Now, first thing you'll notice here is these miniatures are unpainted, and I left that on purpose. Now I will definitely paint these. These are great miniatures. I'll give you a close-up just now, but I wanted to talk just a little bit about it because I think this game is sort of targeted towards not just miniature wargaming players, but also kind of the card gamers, the board gamers, and that kind of stuff. These miniatures are very, very easy to put together. You do have to assemble them. I did use glue on mine, but you don't really need to use glue. They push together really easily, and there's like little pegs and things that'll plug into each other, and each of these is 2 or 3 pieces, and then that's it. And they're very substantial pieces. There's no like little bits and chains and claws and things that you have to hang off the miniature. But let's zoom in and you can just kind of get a feel for how they look unpainted. So here you've got the 3 Stormcast Eternals, and these are Liberators. I just want to kind of show you the poses, and this is something that's a little bit new for the Stormcast anyway, is we've got here a Lady Stormcast. So that's pretty cool. And the bases are really cool. You can see we've got lots of detail on these bases. I'll probably have more fun painting up the bases because I've painted at least a few dozen Stormcast at this point. So that's pretty cool. And you can see there's a lot of good detail. It's your typical Games Workshop type of quality that you can see here. But again, very easy, push to fit, and they come with the awesome bases. And next we have the 5 Blood Reavers. These are a little bit more reflective in this light, but these also have a good amount of detail and lots of gory sort of poses. They have a very Conan vibe. And I should say each of the warbands will come with a leader here. Now this is Garrick Gorebeard, and so he's the leader for the Blood Reavers. And then over here we have Severin Steelheart, and he's the leader for the Stormcast there. There are certain cards and things that will interact with that leader trait. So the first thing players are going to do actually is set up these boards, and these are 2 double-sided boards that you can see here. And what's going to happen is players are going to roll off. So I'm going to show you the dice over here, and you can see there's 3 defensive dice and 4 offensive dice, but in this case it doesn't matter which you roll. Each player is going to roll 4, and what you're looking for are the crit symbols, which that player did not get, nor did that one. There we go, somebody finally got a crit there. So whoever gets the most crits is actually going to place their board second. So the loser will choose a board that they've brought to the table, and then they're going to choose the side, and they're going to put it out on the table. Just for fun, we're going to put it here. Then the other player is going to then attach their board. They're going to choose the side of their board, and then they're going to attach it. Now if they wanted, they could do something like this, We could do it long ways, so the boards end up being something like that there. So just for ease, we're going to go ahead and let's say do it this way, like that. Now you do have to touch at least 3 complete hexes when you do it like this, so you can't just kind of like touch on 1 hex or something like that. So you gotta have at least 3, but just for purposes of this demonstration, I'm gonna do it like that. Now after the boards have been placed, we're gonna place these objective tokens. Now this stack of tokens that you see here are the ones that you're gonna use normally. Now there's some other special objectives for different modes of play, as well as these here you can see for multiplayer games up to 3 and 4 players. Now starting with the player that placed the first board, the loser of that first roll, you're going to take and shuffle these up here, and you can see these are actually numbered, like there's number 1, and then we have here number 4, and so on. You're going to shuffle those up, and then you're going to place them, taking turns out onto the board. So I've gone ahead and placed these out here. Now the way that this works is they need to be at least 2 hexes away from each other, and they can't be on any of these starting locations. You can see these little symbols here. That's where the player models will start. You can't have any in this sort of middle section, this no man's land, and you can't place any on the outer edge hexes until the last one. So in this case, this was the last one I put out. Normally you can't put them on the outer edge, but you can for the very, very last one. And then we'll reveal them. So now we've got these revealed out here on the board. Just as an example, you can see number 1, number 5, and so on. And the players will each have an objective deck that may or may not interact with these objectives on the board. Now after the objectives are placed, players are going to draw cards from each of their 2 decks. Now prior to the game, you'll have made up a deck of power cards and a deck of objective cards. Now this needs at least 20 cards in it, and this one needs exactly 12 cards in it. And each card in each of these decks has to be unique. You can't have a duplicate card. And the power deck card, it's made up of 2 types of cards. It's made of ploy cards and upgrade cards. So let's take a look. So here we can see an upgrade card. You can tell that from the little gears there. And then a ploy card has a little dagger. So you can have more upgrades than ploy cards, but you can never have more than half your deck be ploy cards. And these have a cost to play, and these you'll play at different phases during the course of the game, but these are just 2 examples there. Now you also will have symbols up here. Now these are both neutral symbols, but it's also possible to have a faction specific symbol here. So this is a symbol specific to the Stormcast, and you can even see here this is actually restricted to these 2 characters. Now let's just take a look at 2 of the example objective cards here. You might get something like this, which says score this in the 3rd end phase. If there are no enemy fighters in your territory, it's usually give you 3 glory points or victory points. And this one is hold objective 4. So score this in an end phase where you're holding objective 4. So you can do this at the end of any round. And this one only gives you 1 glory point. Now again, there are some, as you can see, these 2 are neutral, and this one is faction specific. And this one says here, score this in an end phase if none of your fighters suffered any damage in the preceding action phase. And you get a point that way. And again, there's a chunk of extra cards here. These are all of the extras that are not in the starter set. There's a mix of neutral and faction specific. And there's power cards and objective cards and all that. And again, the expansions will have more. So to start, you're going to draw 5 cards off the power deck here, and then 3 cards off of the objective deck, and that's going to make your starting hand. So if we take a look at these, you can actually at this point take a mulligan. Now you can mulligan each of these separately, but if you choose to mulligan objective cards, you have to discard all of these, and these are out of the game forever, and then you draw 3 more. If you want to do any mulliganing with the power cards, you have to discard all of them and then draw 5. And again, the ones that you discard, they're gone. So you really want to get to know your deck and what's in there, and maybe which turn it's better to use these different cards. So I was just taking a look at the power cards. I'm going to go ahead and keep these. Now the thing that's giving me pause here is this objective here. So this says score this in the 3rd end phase if none of your fighters are out of action. Well, that's going to be tricky to do. Somebody's going to die, and people die a lot. And there's hold objective 4, which in this case is on the other player's board, but it's towards my board. And this one says score this in an end phase if your warband took an enemy leader out of action in the preceding action phase, which can happen, but these 2 are sort of tricky to plan on, this one especially. So I'm going to go ahead and mulligan these and then draw 3 more. Now I've done the same for the Bloodbound player, and now at this point you're going to roll off and deploy. So in this case, the Stormcast player won the roll off. At that point they can choose who they want to deploy first. Now they're going to go ahead and let the Blood Reavers deploy first. So you do this one at a time. So Blood Reaver deploys, and then maybe the Stormcast guy deploys here, and then you go back and forth. So now we've deployed. Now the player that finishes deploying first is going to get a bonus roll for the initiative in the first round. In this case, it's always going to be the Stormcast, because no matter who deployed first, the Stormcast will finish first because they only have the 3 models. But before we roll for initiative, let's take a look at the cards for each of these different units out here. Now there's a similar makeup for the Bloodbound players. It shows you each of the characters' models that represents the card, and it has here the possible attacks that they can do. So like this one here is, he has an attack range of 1. You're going to roll 2 dice, which means you're also looking for hammers because that's the symbol on there. Whereas with this guy here, Karsus, you have like a range 2. You're going to roll 3 dice, but you're looking for swords, which is less frequent actually. Hammers is a little bit better. And then it's going to exact 3 damage if the attack is successful, which we'll talk about once we get there. This is the number of hit points they have. Once they take that many hit points, they'll be removed from action. This is the movement here, so they can move up to 3 squares, 3 hexes. And this is the number of defense dice that you roll. So these guys all roll 1 defense die, and you need to get shields. You can see that there. Whereas a lot of the Khorne fellas here, they roll 1 die, but they're looking for the dodge symbol. Now all of the characters have a way to get inspired and activate kind of a level 2 mode here. So if we do this, we can see they get an extra ability that they can possibly use to attack with. They actually start to roll 2 defense die and so on. So we'll talk about that, how that happens during the course of the game. Now before each round, you're going to roll for initiative, and it's the same kind of roll off. So first we're going to roll for the Stormcast. So we're going to roll that. Now they didn't get any crit symbols, but if they finish deploying first, which they did, they get +1 to their roll. So they're already at 1 crit. So the Blood Reavers is now going to roll, and they also did not get any crits. But so the Stormcast have +1, so they now get to choose who is going to go first. And I think in this case, they're actually going to let the Blood Reaver activate first, and then they'll activate, and it'll go back and forth. Now the game is comprised of 3 rounds, each with 4 activations, and so they give you these little activation counters here. So once I do an activation, and when you activate, you move or fight with your fighter, you draw cards, we'll go over that. And then the other player goes, and it goes back to you, back to the other player, until each player's done 4 activations. At that point, you'll kind of have a little bit of an end around kind of cleanup, and then you play 2 more rounds. So a total of 3 rounds with 4 activations. Very, very quick and straightforward. So the Blood Reaver player is going to activate Blooded Sake. He's got a move of 4, and he's got an attack here that possibly does 3 damage. So he's going to try to come in this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And he's actually going to execute what's called a charge. Now if he had just done a regular move, we would go ahead and mark this with a move token, which means he can be moved no further this round. But he could do other actions like attack and so on. However, we did a charge, which is a move and attack. So we'll flip this over. And so that means he can't be activated whatsoever for the remainder of the round. So he's basically done for the round. But we're trying to push in a little bit, maybe try to score that objective. We don't know, but he's also trying to exact some damage here on the Stormcast. So again, if we take a look here, he's got only 1 option to choose from. He's going to roll 2 attack dice. He needs hammers or crits, and he's going to do 3 damage. This guy here's got 1 defense, and he's looking for shields or crits. So let's explain how that actually works. So we've got here 2 attack dice, 1 defense dice. So he wants hammers, he wants shields, and they both will go for crits. So we'll roll this as an example here. So this is a good example. We've got a crit and a sword. Now the sword's worthless for us because remember we're looking for hammers. We're going to roll defense here. And now this is what's called a support, which I'll explain in a little while. So he's got a crit, so that's very good. Now if he got a shield, he could block this, but that's a crit. A crit is always going to trump whatever the normal symbol you're looking for. Now if he'd have rolled a crit, that would have blocked that. Okay, but now let's say he just rolled a normal hammer, and then he rolled a shield. Again, that would have blocked that. But crits will always trump the normal attack. Now let's say he had rolled 2 hammers. So you say, well, how would you ever beat that with only 1 defense dice? Well, neither of these are crits. So if this had rolled a crit, this would have blocked the entire attack. So you always see who has more crits first, then you work down to more of the normal symbol. So more crits beats no crits. But if we had equal crits, these would cancel each other out, and then his success would come through, and the attacker would get the attack. So we'll revert this back to whatever we had here. I remember he didn't get a block. So now the supports are going to come in when you have a buddy adjacent to your target. So in this case, he's attacking him, and he was here. He would then sort of unlock the support symbol on the die. And you can even actually unlock the double support symbol on the die if you have more than one of your friendlies adjacent to your target. So if they were back here like this, then they would be activating those support symbols. And that works the other way. So if the Stormcast here had a guy here, he actually would unlock support because he is now adjacent to the attacker. And if we go back over to these dice here, this is the support symbol if you only have one model adjacent to your opponent, and if you have more than one, this one will also work. So you get more chances on the dice as you have more and more support. So now, since this attack did 3 damage, we'll go ahead and put 3 damage tokens on this card. He's almost dead, but remember, we charged with him, so he's not going to be able to do very much or nothing for the rest of this turn. Now, there's a couple things I just want you to keep in mind as we go through the rest of the game, is all of the Khorne players have an ability at the least 3 fighters are knocked out. So any 3 fighters, it could be 3 Khorne, 2 Khorne, and a Stormcast, all of them are going to level up and become much better. Now, any of the Stormcast that roll a shield or a crit, which he did not, remember he rolled the support symbol, which is of no use. Anytime they do that when they're attacked, they're going to level up. So they kind of want you to attack them in a way. Now, the last step after a successful attack is to push back the target. If you're successful, or even if you just tied actually, you can push that character back 1 space. Now, some abilities will actually have a knockback where you can push them back additional spaces. So we're going to go ahead and just do that, kind of get him off our case there, because that's going to then require him to do a charge or a move or use multiple actions to get up to us. So we're going to go ahead and just move that guy there. Now, it's purely optional. You don't have to do that. Now, that was the Khorne player's first activation. We'll go ahead and flip that over, and that's their activation done. Now, after each activation, then players have an opportunity to play power cards. So starting with the player that just did their activation, they get an opportunity to play 1 power card, then their opponent, and then back to them, and so on until both players pass. Now, if you remember, these cards here, these upgrade cards, they cost a glory point, which nobody has required yet. So this is one I would like to play on the guy that I just charged with, but I'm not going to be able to do that just yet. However, we do want to play this Blood Rain ploy card, and these have no cost. So this says all attack actions in the next activation phase. So that means that this is going to happen on my opponent's turn. So all of the attacks have the sword characteristic, even if they normally have the hammer. So you're going to kind of lessen the chances of any attacks on your opponent's activation. So there's some that you would play here on at the end of your phase to affect your opponent, and there's vice versa, there might be some that you would play at the end of your opponent's to kind of beef up your own attacks in the next activation. So he's going to go ahead and play this one. Now the Stormcast player is going to respond with his healing potion. Now this will heal 1 hit point at least, but if we get a crit or a shield, then it'll heal 2. Oh, so there we got a crit, so that's going to pop 2 of these damage off of the Stormcast. So now we're going to the Stormcast player's activation, and they've got several different options here. They all have a movement of 3. So I think what I'm going to do is actually charge this fella up to here. So 1, 2, 3, and we'll go ahead and mark him with a charge token, and then he's going to attack. And he's got 2 attack dice looking for hammers or crits, and he's attacking here Karsus, who's got 1 defense die looking for dodges. So we'll go ahead and roll that off. So we got a crit there, and we also have a support and a hammer, but the crit's going to cancel off all of that, so no damage is going to be done. So now he's out of action, and he can't push him. He couldn't push him anyway because he's blocked here by this line of sight blocking terrain. You can see that by the thick line there. Oh, and remember, even so, we needed actually to have a sword on that because of the Blood Rain ability, which we played on the previous round there. So that is the first activation for the Stormcast, and I've decided that neither player wants to play any cards after this activation. Now Oberyn's left himself vulnerable here. The Blood Reaver player can attack, and they're not going to deactivate themselves for the rest of the round because there's not going to involve any movement. So we're going to go ahead and use our second activation there to activate an attack action. Now Karsus actually has 2 possible attacks. They have one at range 2 that'll do 1 damage, and one at range 1 that'll do 2 damage. So we're going to roll 3 attack dice, in this case looking for swords, and then again the Stormcast gets 1 black die looking for shields or crits. So we've got here a sword and a crit and a dodge, which they don't want. So in this case we're going to win that. That's going to do 2 damage, so we'll go ahead and just put that 2 damage right back on there. So once again there'll be no card play going into the Stormcast second activation, And one of the things you can do is actually manage your hand of cards. So what they're going to do is actually discard this objective card, and they're going to draw a new one. So they don't think they'd be able to complete that one. And they're going to draw this one here. And this one's going to be worth quite a few victory points, 5. And you're going to score this in the end phase if all enemy fighters have been taken out action. So you got to wipe out the entire team. Somewhat difficult to do, it's definitely not impossible. And it's going to give you a lot of victory points. So that's one of the things that you can do with your activation, is discard an objective you don't like and draw a new one. The other thing you can do is you can straight up just draw a new power card and add it to your hand for an activation. Now going to the third activation of the Blood Reaver, one thing I forgot to mention, I did this on purpose, but I actually forgot to mention it, was I successfully attacked this character last turn and did not push them back, because I don't want to push them back in this case, and you'll see why, because I want to attack them again. If I had pushed them back here, then I would have to do a charge action, a move and an attack, or just a move, and then I wouldn't, that would be kind of a waste. So I'm just going to leave them here and then again attack again with the same character as before. So once again, we're going to roll the 3 attack dice to the 1 defense die, see what we get. And we here have 1 crit, and 1 shield. Now the crit is not going to block the shield. We were looking for swords or crits here. So that's not going to block, but that is going to upgrade a dead Stormcast in this case. So unfortunately, we rolled a shield, which is really good because we're going to upgrade this guy here. But you notice he's got 4 hit points, and he'd be dead before I upgraded. I'm just showing you what would happen. So if he didn't die, then we would have upgraded him. But because he did enough hit points to kill him, he's now dead and removed from the board. So we'll go ahead and pluck him off the board along with this token, and just set him on the card like so. And now the Khorne player has 1 glory point, which you can spend again to get upgrade cards. Now when you spend it, you flip it over like that, you don't actually lose the point. It just, you can't spend it for upgrades anymore. You still retain the points at the end of the game, but this is how you get access to upgrades, scoring objectives, and then also you get obviously 1 point for killing enemy models. So we've done our third activation here for the Blood Reavers, and now we're going to play card. So the Blood Reaver player is going to play this Deadly Spin. This is an upgrade. So remember that all the upgrades cost us a glory point. We're going to spend that. And you can see this one is restricted to Targor. We're going to go ahead and attach this card to Targor. It's going to give us another attack, range 1, roll 3 dice, and do 1 damage. But this targets all adjacent enemy fighters you roll for each. So it's a Deadly Spin. You're going to spin around and you can do possibly 1 damage to multiple fighters. So here we're going to take this card here and just kind of tuck it under there. And now we've got an extra attack that we can do and hopefully do extra damage, because his normal attack is pretty sucky anyway. He only does 1 damage to 1 person. Now we're going to go into the Stormcast third activation, and I should mention they had no cards that they wanted to respond with. Now he's going to do a charge action. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3, and he's going to get a charge token like so. And he's only got 2 attack to the 1 defense, but he's got greater odds. Okay, so he was looking for hammers or shields. He got the crit, and he was looking for a dodge. So he didn't get that there. So the crit will go through. He's going to do enough damage now. His attack here has a damage of 3. So when they do get through, they do heavy damage with their big old hammers. And he was attacking Sayak there, who only has 3 hit points. So it's a good thing we did not equip him with an upgrade, which I thought about. So that's going to be enough to kill him. So we'll go ahead and remove him off the board. And that again is going to be enough to give the Stormcast player a glory point. And the Stormcast player is likewise going to spend a glory point for an upgrade. They're going to attach this now, greater fortitude, and give +1 wounds. So we're going to go ahead and give that to Ingrid there. So that's caused a little bit of a dilemma by adding the + wounds onto Ingrid, because maybe these guys want to come in. None of these guys have attacked. These 2 can certainly reach her and do some damage, but now they've got to do 5 total damage, which isn't going to happen, and they're going to be in a position where she can react back. So they have to be very careful about that. Because the thing to note about these Blood Reavers here, they are very squishy and fragile, but they can deal out a good amount of hits. They're a little bit more lucky in that term, but they can do a lot of damage here. So the other thing that they want is, remember how I said once the third character of any side goes off the board, they all get promoted and upgraded and inspired. So we really have kind of 2 choices here. We have our leader, and who's going to do a little bit more damage. We also have this guy who's not going to do as much damage, but he's also got less hit points, so he's more likely to die. And he's not going to be as big of a loss. And remember, there are cards in the deck that are going to award objective points for taking out an enemy leader as well. So you might want to be a little bit cautious about that. So I'm going to go ahead and activate this guy here. He's going to go 1, 2, 3. He's going to do a charge move. So we'll go ahead and mark him with the charge. And he's now going to do his attack of 2 white dice against the 1 black die. Now he has a special ability though. If he wins with a critical, then he actually does 1 extra damage. So normally it'll do 1 damage, but now it could possibly do 2. So we'll roll these up. Oh, look at that. He got this and a sword, which is what he was looking for, and the defense was nothing here. So this is actually going to do 2 damage instead of just 1. So we'll go ahead and place the 2 damage there on Ingrid. And we are going to go ahead and just knock her back in this particular case, because we're not going to be able to do any more attacks this round anyway. So no card play at this time. I think I am going to go ahead and have her just charge back and take him out. That will activate, or try to take him out. That will activate possibly their special ability, but they're also going to be down another guy. So she's going to run over here. She's going to do a charge as well. She attacks with 3 dice, again looking for hammers. He's going to block, looking for dodges. Her attack does 2 damage, so this will be enough to kill him if she wins. Oh, that's plenty. She's got 2 hammers to his nothing in this case, because that's a support symbol. So that's enough to take him out. And once again, that'll give them a glory point, which is ever so precious to start the game. Now that was the last activation for the round, but we've got an opportunity now to still play cards. And the Stormcast player is going to play this card here. You can see this is Sidestep. It says choose a friendly fighter and push them 1 hex, because guess what? They have objective 3 as an objective card. So they're going to play that and shift them back over that way. And that was one of the reasons that I really didn't try to push her very far forward at all during the round and try to get into a scrum with the Reavers, because I knew that I was going to try to score that, and I knew I had that shift card, so I knew I was okay if I was just 1 space away. So I wouldn't have to actually, waste just a plain old move action just to get there. So that card can come in pretty handy, because in this game 1 hex can actually make quite a bit of difference. So now we're in the end phase of the round. We'll go ahead and remove these tokens or any other tokens that are on the board there. And now we're going to score any possible objectives. Now the only objective that the Stormcast has is to actually hold objective 3, which they do. So we're going to play that card, discard it, and then of course get a glory point there. And unfortunately, the Reaver, they were at a point where they could have scored some objectives, but that's changed. So they're not going to actually be able to score any objectives at the end of this round. Now at this point, you can discard any objectives that you do not want, and then you'll draw back up to 3. So in this case, we've got hold objective 1, which we can do relatively easier, but it's also going to take us out of position, and it's only worth 1 objective point. Now in this case, we have here 2 that we haven't spent. We've got a total of 3. We're winning 3-1 as the Stormcast. So you might say, well, that's an objective point, that's fine. But if you look where it's at on the board, it's way down here. So we're not really going to be able to affect much of what's going on up there. Whereas if we look at Annihilation, which is the card that allows us to score 5 victory points, if we knock out all of the enemy characters. Now that's quite a few more points than 1. 5-1 is, obviously 5 times more. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to discard this, because these are nice to get these early points to, get your upgrades going, but it's only 1 point. So I'm going to go ahead and discard that, even though it's somewhat easy to do. And so we drew 2 more cards, which I'll kind of just brush aside for right now, but these are a little bit more scoreable actually. So we're going to draw those 2. And in the case of the Blood Reaver player, we discarded 2 and we're going to draw 2 more. And speaking of the Blood Reavers, I forgot to do at the end of the last attack there, is all 3 of the remaining Blood Reavers here are going to be upgraded to their more deadly inspired side, because remember, once 3 fighters are out, there's 2 Reavers out and 1 Stormcast out, all of these get upgraded and they're much more powerful. And they have a little bit more range on the movement, which is probably more important. So now that we squared our objectives, we scored any, we discard any we don't like. Now you have the ability to play some power cards, but you can only play in this particular part upgrade cards. You can't play any ploy cards. Those are always in between action things for the next action phase. Now in this case, the Stormcast, all they have is 2 ploy cards, which it's kind of a bummer for them, because they've got 2 glory that they could play, and that will help them, get some upgrades to maybe counterbalance the now inspired Blood Reavers, but all for naught, they're winning, so they shouldn't cry too much. So now what we're going to do is we're going to draw back up to 5 power cards. So we drew these now, and you can see we did get 1 more upgrade, but we've got some more ploys too, which will be useful during the course of the round. Now the Reavers, they only have the one glory point, which they've already spent. They have several upgrades that they could use, but they need to get some glory to be able to spend. Now once again, we're going to roll for initiative, so we're going to roll for Stormcast first. Now there's no modifier to this roll here, just a straight roll off, so no criticals there, and none for the Reavers, so we're going to roll off again. And finally, lastly, for the Reavers, I had a bunch of ties in a row. The Reavers now get the choice of who they want to activate first. So this is a very interesting thing. You may actually give the opportunity to the other player. Now, I haven't usually seen it in the second and third rounds where you actually let the other player go first. Usually you want to win that one. Maybe the first round you let that go. In this case, though, I think the Reavers are going to take it. They do have the extended movement range. They can now move up to 5 spaces here. And I think the way that we're going to do that is we're actually going to move in here the leader first. Now that'll become clear once we get down the road a little bit. So he's actually going to do a charge, 1, 2, and then we'll mark him here with a charge. And he's going to do his attack. So he's going to attack Ingrid, who has some damage on her, 2 attack dice, which need hammers, to 1 defense die, which wants a shield. So there we got a crit. Now that attack is actually able to do 3 damage, which is enough with the 4 plus the 1 to take Ingrid out of the game.